This is Christian Rangel, and today we're going to be discussing the Telecommunications Act of 1996. This act was nothing less than an overhaul of U.S. law regarding communications, which was distinctly of its era and era-defining, forever changing the composition of media ownership through laying the legal basis for major media consolidation. Passing with broad bipartisan support through Congress, on the 8th of February 1996, President Bill Clinton signed the act into law, which would have a profound impact on media, from cable television to top 40 radio, changing not just how content is delivered and presented to the general public, but even the content we have available to us. By the 1990s, the regulatory regime that began with the 1934 Communications Act, which covered the communication technologies of its era, those being radio and wired telephones, had become obsolete. New technologies like satellites and the internet had made the archaic 1934 law woefully out of date, necessitating a new framework for communications law that built off of what had come before, but incorporated and covered the new technological breakthroughs. Inspired by and infused with the spirit of neoliberalism, the belief that competition and free markets should guide the economy, and the attendant deregulation and minimization of governmental interference that flows from this philosophy, the 1996 bill was a seismic shift from the 1934 bill, which was made in an era of depression and widespread government regulation of the economy. While the 1996 bill proclaimed to support competition, it was followed by a swift trend of consolidation in telecommunications, with a handful of conglomerates buying up smaller companies, with the rules regarding media ownership now vitiated. Following the 1996 bill, there was a wave of mergers and acquisitions in broadcast, telephone, and cable services. Following these mergers and acquisitions, 60% of American households were under the control of Verizon or the Southwest Bell Company, a subsidiary of AT&T. As of 2011, these two companies commanded together an outright majority of all profits from wired telephone service. In radio, similarly, competitiveness went down as local stations consolidated, and many were shuttered completely as Clear Channel and other big players in radio racked up immense debt, hurting the diversity of what can be heard on the radio, essentially homogenizing its content in both music and news. Local stations have suffered greatly in the years of consolidation, with farmed-out content being produced by Clear Channel in a centralized fashion and simultaneously broadcasting across the country, with various localities getting the same content with no local variation. In terms of music, this means that local DJs are, by and large, no longer determining what people hear. Once again, companies like Clear Channel and their employees are determining what songs and programs people hear, for better or worse. Robert McChesney, a communications scholar and professor at the University of Illinois, put it like this, quote, 50 years ago, when you drove from New York to California, every station would have a whole different sound to it because there would be different people talking. You'd learn a lot about the local community through radio, and that's all gone now. They destroyed radio. It was assassinated by the FCC and corporate lobbyists, end quote. A similar trend occurred in local news, with Sinclair Broadcast Group buying up local stations and shuttering locally produced content in favor of pre-packaged, centrally produced content. For cable television, the act had the effect of deregulating rates, which subsequently led to their soaring upwards, increasing by nearly 50% in the first 6 years since the bill's passage. In sum, the 1996 Telecommunications Act had widespread negative consequences for our media landscape, both in terms of ownership, who is profiting, and content, what is being broadcast. Inspired by ideals of competition, The deregulatory effects have led to the opposite of its alleged intentions, with less choice for consumers and fewer players on the field, meaning a smaller handful of those at the top who are profiting.